Welcome to Parks and Cons, companion podcast of the parksandcons.com website and YouTube channel, where we discuss cons, theme parks, collecting, and other fun stuff. It's March 6, 2022. I'm your host, Sean. I'm here with Carmel.
Hi there.
Parks and Cons, your on-the-spot podcast, we take the heart of the action, best conventions and themed entertainment events around. Today we have kind of an eclectic cast here with a few different, we're really covering 4 topics here. Where we're recording right now is the Brookhurst Community Center, which is Near Mint Comic Show, is the building behind us now. If you are watching on the video version of our podcast, you'll be seeing just a little bit of some video snippets of some things throughout, but a little bit different than what we did with the DCA one. And for our audio-only people, business as usual.
And this is in Anaheim, so we're not too far from Knott's Berry Farm. I think we can kind of see it from where we are. We had last week in the West Coast Toy Soldier show, and so we recorded about 10 minutes on that, and that is going to be included in this podcast, but that was before we started integrating in the video and things like that. So we'll have that tacked on in general at the end there, but the rest of this that we're going to talk about we'll keep in chronological order, culminating in where we're at now, Near Mint Sundays. So let's start out. We actually had this is a not common, I think it's the first time maybe not the case, but I feel like it's the first time on the podcast that we've talked about like a sporting event, as we've loved. You grew up loving sports. I've grown up loving sports, played tons of basketball, coached basketball, fantasy football. Lots of sports has always been kind of intertwined in the background, but I don't think we've ever talked about it. Obviously, on Parks and Cons, it hasn't fit in, but we did want to talk about a really kind of unique experience of going to an Anaheim Ducks game. I thought, well, let's include it here because it is such a unique experience, and I know we've had several friends over the years that have gone to NHL games and really loved them, had never been before, and then they went and they're like, oh, this is awesome. And this was our second time attending a game, but it was like, yeah, this is really awesome. Like, let's go ahead and just take 5-10 minutes to talk about really quick kind of the energy and just the type of event itself, and because that might be of interest to some people out there. So we were very fortunate. Our friends over from Samhain's Lot, Christy and Jamie, invited us. They had tickets as part of Christy's birthday party, and they brought us to the game, which was incredible. We got to actually sit on the glass and the ice, which was incredible as well. But we have sat much further back. Like when we bought tickets to an NHL game, we were like way back, and it was still, and it brought back a lot of the memories of just kind of the energy and the fun. Now, not to say that any of it is close being like, whatever 40 rows back that we were in a normal time, or if we win again like this week or something like that, to the energy of being on the ice. But I think in general, just the game itself is such a fun, fast-paced, enthusiastic, kind of comfortable setting in a lot of ways. So I thought, let's throw it out there and just kind of let people, because I know we do get a lot of people that write into us or connect with us at even events and say, yeah, we use, the podcast and stuff to kind of give us ideas of things to do. And I think this is something definitely, that we would suggest as something to maybe consider checking out. Yeah, it's been years since we've gone to a hockey game, and as much as my family loves sports and I grew up around sports, hockey wasn't one of those sports. No. So it's not a game that I'm super familiar with, but I can still appreciate the competitive nature and the passion for it and everything else. So, but yeah, having, this opportunity to go to a game, and it was the Ducks versus the Knights, the Vegas Knights.
Vegas, yeah. And
so, it's just the energy level at I think any game, but in particular hockey, it's infectious and stuff. And not, again, being a big fan of hockey or any particular team, I was like, well, we're in the Ducks' home, so it seems only respectful to cheer on the Ducks, and so that's the team I chose to cheer on. Unfortunately, they didn't end up winning the game. No, but
it was a high score. It was like 5-4. They lost. It went down to the wire, but it was, obviously that adds to it too. I feel like obviously we've been to a ton of. We saw Michael Jordan play. We've seen Magic Johnson play. We've been to a bunch of NBA stuff. We've been to NFL games. We've been to just about everything out there, Major League Baseball, tons of Major League Baseball. But I feel like the only thing ever that has the exact punch, at least the games that we've been to, is also indoor soccer. We used to go to some indoor soccer games in San Diego and stuff like that. And there's just something about kind of that smaller stadium. Not that the Honda Center is tiny or anything, but there's just something that's really like a powerful punch, and everybody just seems to be having a really fantastic time there. And that definitely was the case with this, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I would have never dreamt, expected, hoped, or anything to sit right up against the glass.
No, that was a once in a lifetime experience for sure.
Behind one of the
they're not goalies.
The goalie.
Yeah, is it goalie? Okay.
Yeah.
Right behind one of the goalies. It was really intense sitting there. I felt, I think I was until we weren't sitting there that I kind of realized that I felt like kind of tense the whole time, just because it felt, I mean, we're right there. I mean, the guys were like hitting up against the glass, and I was sitting next to Tim Fowler from the farm, and he had set like his cup and his, I think his program and stuff on there was a little ledge right in front of the glass, and he had set his stuff up there, and I think twice it got knocked over because the guys hit it so hard.
Slammed into that glass,
and so he was like, lesson learned, and don't prop stuff there. So yeah, it was really, really cool, but like I said, kind of intense, and kind of I felt like I just felt a little tension in my shoulders the whole time, but I didn't really notice it while I was there. I was just trying to take it all in, but then once we got up from the seats and stuff, then I realized I kind of like took a deep breath, and I felt more relaxed in general. So I think it just felt, I don't know, there was like a certain amount of pressure. I'm sitting so close, and knowing how coveted those seats are, and how it is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and so trying to take it in and trying to take the game in and stuff, and then also there was a slight part of, and when the guys were right there, sometimes we were popping up on the big screen up in the...
Yeah, we ended up on Fox Sports. The game was on, you recorded it, and we're like on there a bunch, like right when they zoom in on the goalie, it's like, we're right behind him, like the background.
So then I was like, I don't want to do anything where I looked, rude or stupid or something on TV. So yeah, there was a certain level of pressure sitting there, but it was just incredible, and I'm so appreciative that we were included in this event. It was, one of those moments that I never really expected to experience. But I mean, we talk about it all the time. I mean, a big part of why we do Parks and Cons is for the experiences and stuff. I mean, to remind you, if or to share with you if you're new to listening or watching, Parks and Cons is a hobby for us. It doesn't pay the bills. There is some income, and it does help with things, but we both have full-time jobs, and it's really, it's the hobby. It's for fun, and so we try to do a lot of why we cover, or not a lot of, but some of the reason why we cover things is to, get different experiences and stuff. And we have, and over the years we've made so many great friends through Parks and Cons, and have met so many great people, but we've had some incredible experiences through Parks and Cons. And this one, although wasn't at a park or at a con, but the friends that we went with that invited us, we met through Parks and Cons, and so I'm just super appreciative that they thought to include us in the event, and super appreciative that we were able to experience this super unique thing. And so yeah, when we've gone in the past, as you said, it's just a lot of energy and a lot of fun to go to most pro sports, but hockey too, and this was at the Honda Center in Anaheim. And if you do go, be sure and read through like the policies of the stadium and stuff, because like at that facility, I basically just took like my driver's license and debit card and credit card and stuff, just because you're only allowed to bring in a wallet that's like by 4x6. If there's medical reasons or like diaper bags, there's exceptions, but in general, you're very limited on what you're allowed to bring in through security and stuff. And so I just took my cards and stuff, which feels kind of weird because usually we have like backpack, we have bags, and we're dragging all sorts of stuff with us everywhere. So if you do go to a game, just be sure you familiarize yourself with what the policies are for the facility and stuff. And just a lot of fun.
It was a blast, and again, hanging out with our Halloween friends, or haunt crew here. There's Samhain's Lot and Restless Souls Manor and the Farm Haunt, and the good people behind it. And then Bones Gulch, kind of a big team of them there represented as well. And so it was fun. It's always fun hanging out with them and talking. We had dinner before, and I think we had about a 2-hour dinner, and it felt like we were there just for seconds because we just blew through it. So it was just really awesome. But we're so appreciative appreciative of being included because, as you said, the number one thing, I'm huge into collecting, but the number one thing that I'm into collecting is experiences. And although we've been to an NHL game before, and I'd love to go again, like I said, it was being there, it felt very normal. We talked about like the pre-pandemic times and things, and part of that, just everybody walking around in the thoroughways and stuff didn't seem to be wearing masks as well because that's not a mandated thing right now, but it just felt kind of like very normal being at a game again. It felt just energizing, and it was great. So huge thanks to Christy and Jamie for having us out and letting us have that experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just a quick thing. I was expecting that once we were there, I was going to want to be wearing an N95 mask because I felt we'd be very, on top of each other. But then once we were there was like a lot of ventilation and stuff, and so
the seats were much more roomy in general than.
Yeah, it's probably because of where we were seated.
Oh yeah, but, no, for sure.
But it didn't feel like everyone was on top of each other, so I opted to not wear a mask. So it was initially kind of strange being in a group environment like that, but without a mask. But again, I like took it in, and I'm like, we're not on top of each other. There's a lot of ventilation and stuff, and so I felt okay to not wear a mask. And so far, we haven't felt any symptoms or anything, so I think we're okay. But just incredible fun, and so appreciative and thankful to be included.
Definitely something to check out. The NHL games out there, particularly the Ducks. I think it's a nice energy there, and it's definitely not the challenge that a lot of the things in LA are and stuff. So just a thought there we wanted to include in the show. So that said, then we'll move on to the following day. We made our way over to Frankenstein Collectible Show for the very first version of Anime Days California, and so you can find them actually on Instagram at Anime Days California, all one line there. But this is one of the Spooksieboo stable of shows there they announced earlier in the year. Spooksieboo does a lot of these free type of events, but normally they always are in the Halloween vein, and we love them. They're always spooky, Spooksieboo, and that all works. But this time around, trying their hand at an anime version, and so I think because it's a little bit different than the Spooksieboo brand, they've kind of given it even its own social media handle there, as I said, Anime Days California there. But this show ran Saturday, March 5th, and then today, Sunday, March 6th. It was one of those kind of is one of those kind of smaller shows that fits into Frankenstein. So Frankenstein itself is kind of its own convention center floor there with all sorts of exhibitors with toys and comics and baseball cards and basketball cards and all sorts of things. But in that back corner, I don't know, they can fit about 50 vendors back there, and it becomes kind of its own convention. I mean, the show we're at today, Near Mint Sunday, this Brookhurst Community Center show could fit inside this section of Frankenstein. So you kind of get that full Frankenstein convention feel Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday. Those are the days they're open. But then when they have these team-up shows, you get this kind of extra flavor there. And so this time all focused in on anime. Now, the one downside of Frankenstein is the parking. It's always been a thing. The parking has always been an issue. They moved to a much larger, much nicer air-conditioned facility, but parking remains to be an issue there. I think it's just that many more people are going now. So we got there, and I don't know, debatably that parking lot was the most packed we'd ever seen it, of just like, I don't know, just there was just nothing but lines of cars. And so the second we turned in, and I knew you were fine of like missing it, because you're like, okay, it's we only have about an hour here anyway. So I jumped out the car. You were gonna look for parking, and you ended up not finding parking and kind of immediately saying like, I'll just pick you up. And so I only spent about a half hour at the show, but I did kind of run around. It is free, which is awesome. You do, I would suggest in general with these Frankenstein shows getting there very early if you want to check them out. In general with Frankenstein, particularly if you're coming on a Saturday, early is the thing. But even Wednesdays and Sundays, depending on the times and depending on what's going on, it can be a battle there. There was a big group of vendors there with all sorts of arts. I mean, stickers were a primary thing I felt like being sold, but lots of T-shirts, original art, fig pins mixed in there. There was some beautifully crafted crochet. There was one of the vendors, and I'll find the name right here as I scroll, because I took a picture of their stuff there, but they had these really awesome Disney characters. So they had, for example, all of the Disney princesses collected there, but then they also had the One Piece characters and the Dragon Ball characters, and they were about, 4 inches, 3 inches, maybe 3 inches tall, but all handmade crochet. And they had even Chip and Dale in little kind of Halloween type costumes and stuff. Some really, really neat stuff there. And that was a vendor I had not seen before. Spider-Man. Now that I'm looking at it, actually I don't have their name didn't come out clear on my photos there. So I guess I don't have who they are. So I'll have to keep an eye out for that next time. And I meant to tag them on social media, but because it was such a rushed thing where I was just kind of in there. Oh, wait. I think I do have it here. There it is. Colorful Sheep _Ba, B-A-A. So you can find them on Instagram. Colorful, COLORFULSHEEP _BAA. But yeah, I mean, they have Yoshi, and they started as cheap as $3 for like small little pieces and stuff like that. But
Are you able to show the photo for those on the video?
good idea. I didn't know we were doing that with the video stuff, but anyway, we have.
It's on your phone, and
Yeah, we just have these small. They have all sorts of small fun things there. But anyway, they were kind of a surprise vendor because I felt like a lot of the ones there I'd seen before. Pick-a-Pap is another one, pickapap.com, P-I-C-A-P-A-P. They do such cool stuff with all the stickers that they put out there and some hats and things like that. Lots of obviously focusing on like Attack on Titan and My Hero and One Punch and things like that. Spooksieboo, of course, had a booth there, and that still had that kind of spooksy, cutesy vibe to it. But anyway, just, you've got, again, I say this all the time about the Frankenstein shows. Like, Frankenstein itself to me is such a gift of just having like every Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday you can go to a convention. If you love going to the floor of a convention, it's always an option. If you want to dig through comic bins, it's always an option. Then when you add in something like this, it just makes it that much better. So, Spooksieboo and Frankenstein, I felt like were both kind of MVPs of the pandemic, of trying to find ways when they were allowed to do something, and then even more so in the kind of whatever we call that, I don't know, June last year when everything was, quote unquote reopened, but kind of not fully reopened, and a lot of cons didn't come till, September, October and stuff, but they both just kind of battled out and constantly were doing whatever they could do. So high recommendation for not just visiting Frankenstein, but also visiting any of the Spooksieboo shows.
I'm not sure you clarified that, but it is a free show. It isn't an upcharge or anything. And I guess the cost for attending is really the battle for parking. Yeah. I think is probably the way it works out. And there was some cosplay. Was there like a lot of cosplay? Or like
very minimal when I was there. The only one I saw was the what is his name? Is it Barry, the skeleton? The skeleton guy with the crown and everything from One Piece was there. We've seen him at a few cosplay things, and he actually was very kind and did a little like scene for me on video because I was like, let me get some video of you walking, and he kind of gave his little yell and stuff like that too. Besides that, there was definitely one or two kind of wandering out as I came in. We got there around noon or something, but I expected to see them again, and I never saw them again. So maybe they took a break, or maybe they were just done with the show. So not so much cosplay, at least during the window of time that I was there this time.
And in the old location for Frankincense, when they did on the weekends, they'd have, and then when they had like extra vendors and stuff, sometimes they'd have like food trucks and stuff. Yeah. But I didn't see anything like that on the outside.
I haven't seen that since the pandemic, because when they first moved there, I feel like they did have a couple times off to the side somebody would come in, but we have not seen that. Maybe there's just not room to pull a truck in there with as crazy as it is.
Well, yeah, the parking lot is very crowded, and it's decent size, but it does share the parking lot with like a Benihana's and some different offices, and then down the ways is like a shopping center and stuff. So actually, I think new since we last were there were more signs that emphasize that parking was only allowed for 1 hour. And then I think you said as you were going in that there was a recording.
Yeah, they converted. So they were hardcore on making sure that they were following whatever the rules were for COVID throughout everything in terms of masks. And so they would always have, like, not only would they have the mask requirement, but they would have playing constantly via audio, a recorded audio just looping of masks are required over your nose, under your chin, that whole thing. And now that had converted, which actually this was one of those things of like, oh, this is nice, because it's like, again, not that we're done with COVID, but it's like, okay, we're kind of in a different phase of things where that recording now was, if you're parked in the 1 hour parking, if you are 1 second late, you will be towed. And it's like, okay, that's cool. Like, let's get back to, there's some of these things that are challenges or problems in the pre-pandemic times that they're just a pleasant thing to have back versus like the, ultra concern about public health on that same level as what it has been.
And so in regards to food then, Frankincense normally does have a snack bar inside and kind of a counter service type thing where they have sometimes sandwiches or pizza and hot dogs and stuff. So that wasn't open throughout the pandemic, but the last few times we were there, they that was an option. Seating's kind of limited, so in the old location there was like some grass out front, and lots of times we would just kind of sit out on the grass and either record a podcast or eat a snack or something. But that's not really the case now. It's all like the pavement and stuff, and so but there are some tables inside, so sometimes you can find a seat and stuff. But yeah, it's I don't know if it's still technically City of Industry, but
Yeah,
but yeah, it is a cool place to kind of go and get your comic books and stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, parking, always pack your patience, because more often than not, it's going to be a challenge of some sort. There have been a few times that we've been able to pull in and it's not been too bad, and I don't know what days or times it was that we arrived, but so sometimes you can be lucky, but otherwise figure it's going to be crowded. And then when Spooksieboo has their added vendors and stuff in there, it does seem to be very consistent that the parking is that much more of a challenge. So
definitely. So, but a fun spot nonetheless once you pass that challenge of that. Okay, so now we're going to wrap up our last part here. We'll have, again, kind of an epilogue there about the West Coast Toy Soldier show, but Near Mint Sundays. This is a new comic book show that has really taken me by surprise, and I am so excited about it and hope that this is like, I don't know, a monthly thing, or at least in every other month or quarterly. I don't know. As of this recording, this is, to my knowledge, the first show. It seems the social media, they came onto Instagram, and you can find them at Near Mint Sundays, all one word, no underscore, Near Mint Sundays. They came onto the scene in January, and we just came across them. I actually saw at Frank and Son there was somebody that had a little card with some information about getting a booth. They have very affordable booths there, actually. You can get an 8x8 spot with a table and 2 chairs for $40 if you did the early bird. So because it is a free show for attendees, it's free parking, and then it's so cheap for the exhibitors. That means deals can get passed on. Everybody just has more money to spend, which is fantastic and such a great model when it's able to be pulled off. So didn't know what to expect. Then as I was looking more and seeing the confirmed vendors on Instagram, I'm like, there's some, good comic dealers coming to this. And then we pulled in here in Brookhurst, and we're like, okay, well, we'll see what's, going on here. We got here around noonish. It started at 10, goes 10 to 3 today, and didn't see any, comic-y, if we want to call them that, people at first outside. And I'm like, hopefully.
Well, I was surprised there weren't any signs outside.
Yeah, there's no signs outside.
So we weren't even entirely sure that this was the correct location. I think the building itself, there is a sign out front, but you have to kind of be in the parking lot to see the sign. And so we kind of drove up and we're like, well, this looks like it might be a community center, and Google Maps said that we were pretty close, so we're like, well, let's park and find out. So we did.
And it is awesome. I mean, if you're looking for whatever, Fantastic Four #1, Amazing Fantasy 15, it's here. Or if you're looking for, 50-cent bins or dollar bins or things like that, it's here. It's a real mishmash of types of exhibitors here. But, I mean, you've got some really high-end stuff. And I definitely felt like, well, as soon as we got here, because we were like, oh, let's spend about, 50 or something like that. And as soon as we got here, and it's like everybody seemed to be spending hundreds and hundreds. It's like, oh, whoa, wait, what are we, we're outclassed here with the amount of money changing hands. But that said, did take it all in, and there's probably about 30 or so exhibitors in there. It's a good, we'll have video that you can check out of the whole thing, but a good, nice floor with a lot of high quality dealers in there, as I told you, because you asked me. And there are dealers that sometimes we don't like to buy from them because we don't feel like maybe generally their prices are, literally every dealer here fell into one of two categories. Either they're one that I trust or they're one that I don't know. And the ones you don't know, that's kind of exciting too. In fact, all the shopping I did was from one that I didn't know. And a really nice thing they had, you found this right away, is every table they have a QR code with the name of the comic vendor there, and the QR code can take you to their Instagram or whatever their social media. So it was for example, the booth that I ended up spending the money that I spent is at, I guess, Aones Comics. It's AONES Comics, and he had dollar bins, $5 bins, $10 bins, and then multi-priced bins. And so I just liked the way the whole setup is. Ended up buying, so they were doing 6 for $5 on the dollar bin. So picked up a Hercules, Prince of Power #4,
with Galactus on the cover there. Some Amazing Adventure, War of the Worlds. If you're on the video version of this, you can see some of these pictures there. Arak, Son of Thunder, which is not really a thing I normally collect, but I've been starting to pick those up because we're just finding them in cheap bins. Cloak and Dagger 2, 3, and 4 of the mini series. Marvel Team Up, that was fun to find in the dollar bins. They had a couple. They had Spider-Man and Havoc, number 69 there, and then they also had the Spider-Man and King Kull, number 112. Picked up a Warlord, World's Finest. You got Green Arrow and Flash in it, $2.31 for $1, or I guess it's more like, 90 cents after that. Now, Marvel Premiere featuring Jack of Hearts. This is the first appearance of Jack of Hearts, number 44. I've actually been picking these up on eBay lately for like $5-6, with shipping, because Jack of Hearts is starting to make a comeback in the Marvel Universe, and it's one of those things of kind of, hey, it wouldn't be bad to have 4 or 5 copies of this sitting around to see if he kind of booms at some point with the way that media works now. So that's been kind of one of my investing tips of something to buy low. So finding it, though, in a dollar bin, it's like even better than spending, $7-8 on eBay or whatever. Kazar, number 2, nice 20-cent book there. So I got those. That was $10 for those 12 books. Then I moved over to the $5 bins, and there was some neat stuff mixed in there, and I started to grab, there was a couple Fantastic Fours and the 200s and things like that. But then I came across Secret Society of Supervillains. This is DC's old, villain title, which is a really cool, fun collection of Captain Cold and Gorilla Grodd and all these guys. And I only have a couple issues of it. I have all of the the Marvel supervillains, I believe, supervillain team-up issues, except for one of them. But the DC ones, I wanted to do the same thing, and all of a sudden they had 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. So now I have the first 7 of them. But picking up those for 5 for $20 then, which I was really happy to do, and they're just fun, kooky, crazy, types of books there. So that was fun as well. Then I moved to the $10 bins, and those were $10 each or 5 for $40, and I just picked up one there. It was one of the Green Lanterns we have left that we need, number 81. So we're moving to the point where there's not many Green Lanterns left that aren't $100 that we need. So whenever we can find one that's under that, it's oh, cool. So picked that up. So I mean, the show's closing in 18 minutes. I see people rolling their stuff out there, and I'm oh, I want to get back in there and spend another, $20 or something like that. But a really fun show. Highly, highly recommend checking it out. And how can you miss at, free, being able to come on in? And as you said, it's 5 minutes from Knott's. So for any of our Knott's fans out there that want to check out a comic show, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this and including it in our podcast rundowns and our homepage on parksandcons.com and all of that.
Yeah, it was a really welcoming feeling. I mean, it felt once we realized we were in the right place, we got in there, and there were lots of vendors, lots of people shopping, and it just seemed like there was a lot of activity and a lot of purchases being made and stuff, and it was definitely, like I said, friendly, welcoming environment. So, I imagine we will be back, especially with their proximity to Knott's, if they're able to stay in the same location and stuff. But a free show a few minutes from Knott's, and with lots of comic vendors. And there were some toys there, not a ton though, but there were a couple of vendors that had some Funko Pop and some other types of collectibles. But it was very heavy on the comic book stores, even Kimzar, is that the vendor? Yeah,
Kimzar's here, collectibles, yep. They have great stuff.
Lately, when we've been seeing them at shows, I feel like we've been seeing them selling toys. But today, I don't think they had any toys. I think they had all comics. And it's for a second, I was like, wait, they do comics? And then, of course, they're a comic store. But at the shows, we've been seeing them doing more toys. But they just had quite a few, a handful of tables just full of books and stuff. So, definitely seems like a promising show. And as a attendee at free,
Can't beat it. Yeah. This is a show, I would have a tough time missing this show no matter what it was going against. If it was, not that it would be up against WonderCon, but even if it was at WonderCon, I'm not saying I would miss San Diego Comic-Con for it by any means, but WonderCon, I'd be can we take an hour out of it to run down to this place? And so it's a good show. Definitely, if you're a comic fan, keep an eye on it, and I'm hoping we'll be covering it a lot in the year and years ahead as they hopefully do a lot of shows. So I'm anxiously awaiting to hear what they announce in terms of the next time they come, because I think that'll give indicators of how often they plan to have shows, and I hope it's as frequent as possible. I'd be here probably every weekend if they had it. So with that said, though, I think we were going to go ahead and wrap up this show. Maybe we'll get 10 more minutes on the floor. We'll see there. We thank you for tuning in, whether it's the podcast audio only version or the visual YouTube version. Just a reminder that that is an option both ways. So however you choose to consume media, I know I always prefer audio only myself, but both are there. As we look at the calendar of things to come up in the weeks ahead, we do have Transformers Con, that's TFCon, coming up this March 11th through the 13th. March Madness is the fan event that is a celebration of Knott's Scary Farm halfway return point. That's March 13th over at Knott's Berry Farm. The Knott's Berry Farm Boysenberry Festival, that's March 18th. Actually, we'll have a show, though, much sooner than that, where we preview a bunch of the food from the event, but it kicks off over at the park on the 18th. Ghouls Day Out, speaking of Spooksieboo, that is the next Spooksieboo show. That is March 19th. IE Outdoor Toy Exchange, that is a toy show that kind of burst onto the scene during the pandemic and those outdoor times. They return on March 19th. There is a fun-looking show over at UCR, or an exhibit, I should say, over at UCR at the Culver Arts Center there. Eben, Fear of a Black Planet. That exhibit begins March 19th. Model Kit Collector Show returns March 20th. Toyzilla has their next swap meet March 26th, is it? Yeah. And then WonderCon, April 1st through the 3rd. Once again, we want to thank our Parks and Cons crew, everybody that supports us on Patreon. Please check it out if you like the work that we do. Also, another way you can help out the show if you will do so is liking and subscribing liking and subscribing with our YouTube channel, and also leaving reviews wherever it is you find the podcast on those audio-only platforms. Remember, you can follow along with us in real time on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube, all of them at Parks and Cons. Wrapping up here at the Near Mint Sundays comic book show. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere. Did want to record now because we just wrapped up at the West Coast Toy Soldier show and sale. I always forget the sale part there. And I mean, actually, if you want to find them on social media, you can find them on the on Facebook at the West Coast Toy Soldier show. And this is a show that, I don't know, I mean, it's been around for quite a while, I believe, but we've not attended all of them. It's always been a smaller show that we've hit here and there, and so it's one that was keeping an eye on during the pandemic, of course, wondering, is this going to come back, and if so, and then it crept onto the calendar, and I don't know if it had been at this location before, but I was definitely anxious to see it. So actually, as I'm looking here, so 5 years ago, we recorded a video of it, and it was the 27th annual. 5 years ago, and now then there was another video we did 3 years ago, so we've been going to whatever extent for 5 or so years there. I think the 5 years ago was the first time, but this time it moved over, or at least for us it was our first time visiting it at the Delta by Marriott Hotels location or something like that over on Harbor near Disneyland.
Yeah, basically across the street from Target, and kind of across the street from, I think, like Buca de Beppo and like Red Robin and stuff. So if you go to conventions in the Anaheim area, you're probably familiar with that area. And we've done other shows there. I think like Disneyana's been there before, and I think there's been another show or two there. But yep, so it was, I think, our first show there since the reopening
in that
of
location.
things,
yeah. I think the Disney fan club show's coming up, I think, in April or May, Disneyana. So we'll probably covering that in the not too distant future. But now, interesting with this one, they did seem to have a switch in fact, if you go to their Facebook page, it says, "Hello, we are a company that has revived the Great West Coast Toy Soldier Show, now under a new name and management. Matthew Murphy and Hobby Bunker are the promoters of this fun and entertaining show." And I believe Hobby Bunker is on the East Coast. I want to say it's like Massachusetts or something like that. So I'm not sure what happened with the former, leadership of the show and what happened. And they don't seem to incorporate like the years anymore, things like that. Like there's a reason we knew the 27th annual version and things like that. But regardless, the show has come back in some form or another. Now, it definitely, we got there. Well, actually, let's talk about the structure of the show. So the show
relies a lot on room sales, which we did not participate in. And so a lot of the fun of the hobby of this show is room sales. Room sales are a fantastic part of the collecting hobby for shows, particularly something like Star Wars Celebration is a big deal there. And the idea of room sales, if you've never heard of them, is the idea that quite simply it is what it sounds like, is your hotel room becomes kind of your, swap meet location or your convention location. It's your booth. And so you've got a hotel room and you open the door and you use the dresser and the bed to lay out your stuff and sell and trade. And there's a lot of great deals that go down in the rooms, far better than probably anything you'll ever find at the actual shows. So this one, they actually had room sales, and it's, I think, the only show we cover that really advertises it as like a major part of the show. Like a lot of toy shows will have room sales, but they're not necessarily incorporated into like the agenda on the the website or the Facebook page of the official, yeah. And so here, though, they make it very clear. I mean, on even their banners and signage inside the hotel, it's like West Coast Toy Soldier Show, Sunday 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then it's got another part that says, room sales Friday, Saturday night. So sometimes hotels frown on the idea of room sales because obviously you have people, wandering halls and things like that. But here it just seems like, hey, this is part of the deal. This is what we do. And so that was a big part of it. I saw, starting on Thursday, some pictures of just, awesome displays in rooms filled with boxes of stuff. I mean, really arguably more stuff on display in the room sales than we even saw today at the actual show. And so now getting there on Sunday, it is, 9 to 3. We got there about 1:30, so we're in that kind of ending. And if you've ever been to a toy or comic show, they are prone to be wrapping up in that last hour or so. So we made sure to get there a little ahead of that, although by the time we got there already seemed to be a number of vendors that had either wrapped up and totally left or were in the process of moving out their table. There's one, for example, that had a die-cast G.I. Joe set from the 80s. And I saw them putting it on a cart, and it was like $100, and it was like I didn't want to buy it, but I was curious what else they had, because a lot of the Toy Soldier Show are focused on things that are not, they're not the mainstream G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Marvel, DC type stuff. It's more of, it sounds like toy soldiers and of that nature. So,
and by toy soldiers, it's generally like those little, there's all sorts of them from what we saw, where obviously they're, but in general, they're kind of like the little, 2 or 3 inch tall, kind of static figures and stuff. And so, yeah, kind of different than what we normally attend and see at shows and stuff.
So, it's an interesting, kind of mix of things there. I mean, the focus is on those scales, but then within it you may have like there was one booth that had kind of universal monsters, and so it would be like $35, $40, $50 for a little Dracula, but a highly detailed looking little cool character there. The stuff that really stands out to me is the Marx stuff. I mean, I still collect like the Marx Disney. They're about, maybe they're probably 4 or 5 inches tall, but they're just these kind of, plastic globs of figures. They're like toy soldiers blown up a bit. But Marx was big back in like the 50s, maybe the 40s as well, with their kind of like tin forts. I mean, you used to be able to buy like a box and it would have a fort that was made out of tin, and then you had all these little soldiers that would come with cowboys and things like that. And so, like we saw there, they had a Zorro playset, which Zorro is one of like the real sought after ones, because again, you didn't have a lot of IP attached to toys at the time. It was like spacemen, it was cowboys and Indians, it was things like that is what they were called. And so you didn't have a lot of like Lone Ranger, you didn't have really Star Trek or those types of things, even though some of those were starting to come onto the scene. So saw some of those types of playsets out there. Didn't see much in the way of dioramas. There's in the past been more like just here's a set of these like battle scenes and stuff. I think we only saw like one battle scene in the time looking all the stuff there.
Well, in general, it seemed like, again, we were there later, so we don't know what was there before, obviously, but it seemed like there were quite a bit fewer vendors there. It seemed just in general to be a smaller show, and I don't know necessarily why, but it seemed like there was less in that way than there have been in the past.
Yeah, so with all those things being said, it was fun to kind of see the stuff that they had on display there. It was we did pick up, so there was one dealer there, and I've always said that about like when a show specializes in A, it's good to look for B or C sometimes. And so in this case, it's all about toy soldiers and stuff. And then they had a couple boxes of 2 short boxes of comics and like a small stack of comics. And they were pretty beat up, but they were dollar comics. Then it said 7 for $5. And in the end, he said take 15 for $10. So picked up 15 comics. There was, you know, some 80s Batman and Silver Surfer and Cloak and Dagger and stuff. Nothing, no big key issues or things like that, but some stuff that's like, okay, this it fills a few holes, and it's some fun stuff for 67 cents, 66 cents each, or whatever it might be. So that was cool. Also picked up, you found, which I totally had missed this, but some paper dolls. These are like 70s and 80s Disney paper doll books, and so it's like full-on Mickey and Minnie, and then another one with Donald and Daisy, and then another one that's just Minnie, that's like kind of a mid-80s Minnie Mouse, and they were only $3 each, so we picked up a few of those for ourselves, and then we picked up like 2 to maybe use as part of giveaways or things, maybe like D23 Expo or stuff like that, but you know, vintagey, you know, 70s, 80s, paper doll, Disney stuff, anything. I shouldn't even say paper doll, just Disney stuff, 70s, 80s for $3. I'm definitely going to be in on that. So we ended up spending like $15 on that and $10 on the comics. And then we spent $7 each to get in. So, you know, not a show spent a lot of money at, but it was fun to kind of pick up what we picked up and do that. I know, you know, people out there that are, cause like the videos in the past for the Toy Soldier show over time have picked up, you know, a little bit of views there, like 1,400 or so, and I know that people watching those are like, I'm guessing hardcore Toy Soldier people, and so you'll probably be disappointed watching the video and seeing the things that we bought at a Toy Soldier show are paper dolls and comics. But you know, there was, I mean, I'm always tempted. You see a bin of $2 figures, these little, you know, Marks figures, whatever it is, at that price, I'm tempted to pick some up. But then it's like, I know we don't really have a place for them. We don't really need another thing to collect like that. So I was happy with the stop, being able to see what it was, being able to support the show. Now I did hear a vendor talking. Actually, the vendor we ended up buying the comics from was talking to somebody else and said that it was unclear if this show would return, that its future was kind of, you know, a little cloudy. And so they didn't have, it said, as many vendors committing this time around and stuff. And obviously 2 years away, COVID, you add in the fact that toy soldiers are not, you know, like an emerging market. It's not something that's like a big IP-driven thing. It's an aging kind of collector area, and so I think there's a little fear that the show may not return. But I will continue to like the Facebook page and follow along, and hopefully they return in, you know, 23 and we'll be there. And if not, you know, then it's one of those shows that disappears. And that is something, I mean, as we go through this year and the next couple years, I think we're going to see shows emerging. We just saw that Anime Pasadena has added an Anime Riverside version, and that's going to be debuting this June. So you're going to have those where shows that are hot and kind of trending are going to maybe pick up steam and add some. And then we have other shows like the Claremont Comics Show, which we used to go to practically once a month, just disappeared entirely. And the last we heard is they may become a San Diego show, or they may just never be a show again. And so some of these will kind of bow out quietly. I know just listening recently that on Gallifrey 1, they said that they were very close to not having a show this year, and if they didn't, that would be the end of the show. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with these, you know, different types of shows, be them big or small, in the future. But I'm glad we were able to attend this one, whether it's the first of many more to come, you know, since the reopening, or if it's the last of its kind. Either way, I was glad we got to see it, get a little video, and we will have that video up on the YouTube channel if you are interested in seeing kind of the things that are on display there. And with that being said, I think we'll wrap up this segment, and then we'll come back to you.